am honored to introduce our keynote speaker this morning. Cylk Cozart is an award-winning actor, director, writer, producer, and basketball player. He has over 50 credits to his name in film and television, and he is a true artist. As an artist, he has given back to the community, and last year he was awarded the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award by President Joe Biden. So I am so excited to hear him talk about compassion and empathy this morning. Everybody give a big S&PS warm welcome to Cylk Cozart.
There's a village in North Carolina.
Cylk Cozart wanted to play pro basketball, but acting was more satisfying, starring in White Men Can't Jump with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes.
Yes! Y'all go back to SeaWorld! 1,700!
And so many other roles, too many to name.
Took the SAT recently, scored 520 out of a possible 1,600.
520? You get 400 for just spelling your name correctly.
That's it. Messed up on his name. Hi, baby.
Daryl, what the hell are you doing here?
Been waiting for you. I was just getting cleaned up. How you doing?
So what? You just let yourself into my house, huh?
I've been worried about you, that's all. You know, I haven't heard from you in days.
Well, there's nothing left to talk about. It's over, and you know that.
You're seeing someone, aren't you?
Oh, come on, Daryl.
I know you're seeing somebody. Let's see who that is.
Agent Lowry.
Wasn't my idea.
Jonas.
It's his show for now. Look, you want to get some dinner? Interagency cooperation and all?
Oh, you're gonna have to help me though, Agent Larry. I mean, it's coming back, but slow.
You got it. By the way, my real name's Hatcher.
Pleased to meet you.
Yeah.
Oh, go easy on me.
Sorry about that.
And if it's going all right, I need you, baby.
Baby.
Oh, pretty baby.
If it's quiet.
In the racially charged South at the turn of the 20th century, two wealthy white sisters left their entire fortune to a black man and his daughter. What eventually happened in this true story is now on the silver screen, but his recent project hits home. Writing the screenplay, performing the song, directing, narrating, and acting, all generated from the book Inherit the Land.
What's it all about?
Well, it's about these two ladies that happen to be white that grew up during the Jim Crow era.
Black folks had almost no rights.
When my relatives died, the white people put on their suits and came over to our house. I thought black and white people helped each other.
Maggie Ross was the richest woman in the area and bequeathed her whole estate to a black man named Bob Ross and his daughter Mitty. A legal fight went to court, and an all-white jury awarded the estate to Bob and Mitty.
Do you believe that it's always wrong for white people to bequeath land to Negroes?
I believe that colored folks have the same rights that everybody else has.
Did you take advantage of that old white woman?
Well, I don't like Negroes.
Miss Greer, you were employed as a cook by Miss Maggie, were you not?
Yes, sir.
What was it like living up there?
I can't take it anymore.
Harriet, no. You've been with me since Sally died. What in the world would I do without you?
100 years ago, that was a microcosm of what we could be like or what we should be like in this world. You know, color shouldn't matter. They raised this girl as their own. She looked at them as their family. So when they died, they left them the land, and they did very well.
Cylk says the film touched him deeply.
They buried the baby in the garden.
You see the world today, how people are just so, they're so hung up on race and prejudice and all this stuff, and people calling each other names. And I wanted to show that, no, 100 years ago, it was even worse than that, but this one community didn't feel that way.
We played together.
Played all the time together.
But we never have any racial problems.
No.
They treated everybody normal, whatever normal is, right?
Inherit the Land took home the top award by Hollywood Weekly from 2,000 entries.
Is that a goal for you too, that this makes a difference, hopefully, in somebody's life or lives?
That's my whole point. We can all do something. Well, first of all, look in the mirror. You can't say, you guys got to make a change. You guys, well, what about you? And we have to be more empathetic. And I think by film, using movies, is a great avenue to do that.
An avenue that certainly changed Cylk Cozart.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming from all over the place, where everybody came from. Okay, I live in Knoxville, and you know, it's not that far because of what you guys have done. First of all, I want to thank this beautiful team that Stephanie Jr. put together. So thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Elizabeth Dees. Thank you, Rebecca Maddox. And thank you, April Norton, Jennifer Scott, Kennard Dagon, and Christy Webb. If it wasn't for Christy Webb, probably wouldn't be here. She suggested that I would be a speaker here, and I don't know, I think she's over there somewhere. But thank you, Christy. And also, I'd like to thank all the sponsors. I know there's quite a few, so I'll just say all of them, everybody. Because this is the ultimate teamwork, is what I can see and what I've noticed being here just for a day or so. I'm a little different than most speakers in the fact that I don't like doing anything like everybody else. I like, when I went out to Hollywood, everybody would say, well, you think outside the box. And I'm like, there's a box? Where's the box? I mean, what box are you talking about? So I didn't really understand that. I think it helped because of the way I was raised. And I think most of it's about our environment, where we're raised in. I mean, I think we were speaking yesterday about if you were raised by educators, chances are you're probably going to be a pretty good student. If you were raised by drug addicts and alcoholics, that's a chance you might be that as well, because that's your environment. That's all you know. So that told me a lot. And I'm no different than any other kid growing up and wherever. And I grew up in the South. So I could always say, oh, you know, in the South we're very prejudiced and all this stuff. Well, yeah, but I tell you what, you put yourself in the environment in which you want to perform, whatever that task is, whatever your passion is. And Jim Johnson is my best friend and brother from another mother. I want to thank him as well. When you're a child, I don't care where you grow up, you imitate everyone that's right in front of you, okay? I never like to imitate, I just want to create stuff. So when I got to school, by the time I got to school, I was a little behind, because it was around, you know, the 60s, they had the busing thing, you know, I'm black and Indian. My mother's Cherokee, my dad's black or African American, colored, as they said 100 years ago, whatever you want to use. So it's a joke in our family, like, well, they hate you twice. That wasn't funny to me, but it was the truth in so many ways. So by the time I got to school, like I said, I was behind. People would laugh. You know, I was 2 years younger than people in my grade, so I started out that way. So when it comes to empathy, which I think this world is lacking or is forgotten about, I think it's a great place to start from. We already know what has not been working, you know, from, I guess, from points of views from our leadership of the nation, leadership in our communities. I think it's mostly about money, which we have to have. But I think if you don't have empathy, in other words, if you can't put yourself in someone's position or place to kind of feel or see, or at least acknowledge what they've been through, I don't think you can do the best of your abilities. I wanted to tell you a little story. Before there was television, not that I was around then, but before there was television, everyone would gather around their radios, you know, in the family. Everybody was like, you know, ooh, you know, Orson Welles had the great voice, you know, and, you know, everybody thought those, you know, Martians were going to come, and all that stuff, you know. So it was more intimate. You actually, families actually ate together, you know. what happened to that? I talked to my friends, they're like, well, I eat over there, Mom eats over there, Dad eats out in the garage. Whoa, okay. So at that point, when there was no television, no one ever thought about a television. The family was sitting around. There was one young lady that had a 6-year-old child. When that child got into school, she was considered disruptive. The teacher said, Ms. Jones, your daughter has a mental problem. She has a mental disorder. And this is from a teacher, just a regular teacher. So the mom says, what do you mean? She says, well, she disrupts the class. She's always, moving around, playing with everybody's hair, just dancing around, all that stuff. And she's a distraction. So she has a mental problem. So she says, well, what do you suggest? She goes, I think you ought to send her to a psychiatrist. And of course the mother goes, I don't think so. But finally, after about a month, she took her little daughter to a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist said, all right, we'll call her Mrs. Jones for now. So Mrs. Jones, bring her in and let's just sit down and talk. Well, she brought her daughter in, and as they were sitting there, the psychiatrist said, I would like to take you in this room. We can still see your daughter. We're just going to turn on the radio and just observe her. She goes, I've been observing her for 7 years. I know my daughter. She goes, just observe her. That's all I want you to do. They go in the room, turn on the radio. The girl's sitting there for a minute, and a little song comes on. All of a sudden, she starts dancing around, twirling, And the mom goes, see, that's what she does in school all the time. And he goes in with her, and he says, ma'am, your daughter does not have a mental problem. Your daughter is a dancer. He goes, what? She says, your daughter is a dancer. Put her in a dance class. She goes, no, my daughter's going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an educator. She goes, your daughter's a dancer. She might be a dancing doctor, but she's a dancer. Put her in a dance class. Finally, she put her in a dance class. She became like the best dancer in that class. She went to high school. She was the best dancer in the whole high school. She went to college in New York. She became like this wonderful choreographer. And the very first job she choreographed was a little show called Phantom of the Opera in Cats. Now, what would have happened today? Same scenario. They would have given her drugs. They would have said, sedate her a little bit. She's too, like this. And I thought, when I heard that true story, I thought, wow, how many other daughters and sons and people are that way, that we're missing out on their talents because there was no empathy. I want everyone in here, this is a little experiment. I want you to literally put yourself into that little girl's soul, as she was just as smart as the other kids, She wasn't disruptive. Some of us need to move around to think. I don't care what your job is. And that's why I wanted to correlate empathy with our work. I'm a filmmaker. I tell stories. Believe it or not, you all are storytellers in your own right. Everyone has a story. Everyone. I can't tell you how many people that I meet, they'll say, hey, Cylk, hey, I got a script about, this guy's cow. He's got 2 heads. And I think it's a great story. I'm like, well, okay, that's a great story. If you can't tell me what your story is in a sentence or 2, you're not ready to tell the story in that platform, that format. It doesn't mean you're not going to. It just means you're not ready for us to make this film or your project. We love telling stories, and we love telling the real stories, not what you thought you heard, but what you want to get across. You got construction. Somebody had to design this beautiful, building we're in. Somebody had to, and maybe it starts with dreams. I don't know. We all dream, but yeah, at some point you have to wake up and actually make it come to fruition. I have a company called Keeping Dreams Alive. It's my foundation. and it's with Martin Luther King III. He's one of my executives, and I told him, I said, your father was great, had dreams, you know, the dream. I said, but at some point, we have to wake up and make that dream happen. Otherwise, you're just gonna keep dreaming. So if you have a plan, and if you don't have a set time to make that plan happen, it doesn't mean it's gonna happen exactly when that is, but you have a foundation. It doesn't matter if you're building like a hotel, it doesn't matter if you're making a movie. And I use examples of filmmaking to show examples. I teach acting for actors, for directors, for writers, doctors, and lawyers. And you might say, well, doctors and lawyers, why don't you teach acting for doctors and lawyers? Well, it's not that they want to act, but it's communicating. Acting is communicating. It's really the listener is the most important person. Because if you're listening, you can forget all your lines, okay? But if you're really listening to the person in front of you, you're going to remember. You're going to know exactly where you are. So, with that said, let's just say you are a designer. You want to design a building, you want to have this out front, and this when you walk in the atrium, and this, every room is going to be different. Okay, you know. Let's just say that your budget is probably about 1/10 of what it really would be for that vision. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to put a team together, no matter what the costs are. You want to make that design first. Okay? You got to get it out of your head and onto paper or on the screen so it can start to happen. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going. What I love is the correlation between film, video, and any production, because it requires a team. And if anybody says, oh, I did it all myself, you know that's not true. You know, that's ego. And believe me, Hollywood is full of the egos. I don't know how I survived it. I really don't. But the main thing is, I'll keep saying this till they put me in the ground. If you don't have the proper team that is passionate about their individual positions, your team is not going to do the best. And you're not going to achieve what you really want to achieve. Examples. As a director, when I bring all the elements together, I don't tell the actors how to act. I don't tell the caterer how to make the food. I don't tell the cinematographer how to film. I meet with them individually. Each person in each category, in each department head. And I say, how do you like to work? How was it in your last production? Did you have fun? Let's say if you're a costume designer, do you have a relationship with this store, with that designer? What's your process? And I learned, if you don't enjoy the process, you're not going to enjoy the outcome. Because guess what? It's always going to be a process, no matter what. And going back to teaching doctors and lawyers acting, again, I'm not teaching them to get on stage and how to act. I'm teaching them that when you have to talk to, and this is horrible because we've all experienced this, death in our families and friends. If you're a doctor, you have to tell someone, you know, we've done all we can. There's nothing else we can do. You're not just talking to that person, you're talking to that person's family as well. You're talking to their mother, their brother, their sister, their daughter, their husband, their kids, their grandkids, a plethora of people. So what doctors do, and I'm sure there's some doctors in here somewhere, it doesn't matter. If they don't have any empathy or don't appear to have the empathy, that destroys so many lives, and they don't realize it. So the communication comes where you have to be cognizant of your surroundings. Now, there's a lot of doctors who would say to me, and lawyers, especially lawyers, they would say, well, there's no time. When are we going to, I have to have an operation in 10 minutes. I can't take time for this person. Well, you make time. You make the time. You make the time to do what you're doing now. You make the time to communicate, or how you communicate. And again, it goes back to listening. The listener is the most important one. It might be 51-49, but the listener if you're really listening, people will tell you exactly what you need to know. And I found out the hard way. You know, I thought I knew certain things coming in this industry because, you know, a mind is a terrible thing, as I said. But I always imagined certain things, but when I got to Hollywood, reality hits. You know, first of all, I needed someone to tell people, an interpreter. I needed an interpreter because I would say, "Hey, y'all ready to go to this show here over there?" They're like, "What are you saying?" You know, my first roommate was he's from Italy, and I would say, "Hey, let's we got to, you know, I got to go get some washing powder, you know, at the, you know." He goes, "What?" I said, "Washing powder." You know, he goes, "You mean detergent?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I said." He goes, but that's the way I was taught. I thought kiver was the same thing as cover, because that's the way my grandmother taught. She goes, "You better get them kivers ready because it's cold tonight." Like, and I said that when I was in school. People would laugh, and I would go, "What are you laughing at?" They go, "Kiver, what the heck is a kiver?" I said, "You know, if you're cold, I was embarrassed, right? But it taught me a valuable lesson, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're from or how you talk. What matters is the effect and what you're doing in your production, whatever your production is. And you guys are very intelligent, but we don't know everything. You got people that can act. You got people that have to finance the project. Now, a lot of actors are not business savvy. And a lot of business folks are not creatives. Now, the wonderful people I've met here over the last 24 hours are left and right brain. I mean, it's phenomenal. I would hire you guys in a heartbeat on a movie. Even though you've never worked on a movie, I would still hire you because you have that mentality and you let people do what they do. Again, you don't tell anybody what to do when they have a passionate energy. You let them go. If you have to micromanage, what are you doing? You know, if you got to go to every department and go, "Okay, here's what I want you to do." Well, that's too late. You should do that in pre-production. So pre-production is merely sitting down with your departments individually and saying, what's your story? What's your story? What do you want to tell here? Let's start with that. Now, once you know the story, things fall in. Now you put people in their place, in their positions that they're really, they can't wait to go to work. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a movie set where, you know, you meet someone that's, I say, "Hey, what do you do here?" "Oh, I'm the sound guy." I said, "Oh, okay, nice to meet you." And then they go, "I really would like to act, you know, and if I get an opportunity, so if you see a role." I'm like, "Okay, but I need a sound guy today." You know, or you got actors, which is mostly egotistical people that have, you know, had a horrible childhood. But anyway, they'll come up and they'll say, "You know, you think I could, you know, produce a movie or something like that with you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm sure you can. What do you want to produce? What's your?" And they can't tell you. They can't tell you. It's what they think they want to do. So I love meeting people that have a passion. I don't care what the passion is. That's not the point. The point is having a passion for something. How many people have you met that they seem really dynamic, you know, in one way, and then when you meet them, you're so disappointed. I'm like, what happened? Or I want to meet the person that what happened to that person? Well, most of us don't really know who we are. And Jim and I were talking last night about that. If you don't know who you are, how can you achieve ultimate? How can you? You might touch upon it, but it doesn't matter what you do. And that's why I think, as far as, you know, film business, construction, and all that, it's really connected because you're telling a story. What story do you want to tell building this building? That's a story, you know? And everybody is a part of a team, or they help build a team, or they put the team together. The main thing is be passionate about what your position is. Then you can enjoy life. You're not, you know, on the job like, "Oh God, I gotta go in today. I'm the finance person, but I really want to sing." Wow, okay. But if you would have known that had you met with that person prior to them getting on the set, which is too late, by the way, by then. It's way too late. You know, it's too late to practice. If you didn't rehearse before you got to the set, it's a little too late. So the challenge that I mentioned is that internally, it's an internal challenge, that whatever your position is and whatever you're doing, reverse it. Be that little girl that was trapped in her body, couldn't express what she was feeling. Be the mom that thought her daughter was going to be one thing and realized that's not what she was. What if that was suppressed her whole life? Can you imagine having that kind of talent, or that particular talent, which is, if you don't express yourself, you suppress yourself. That's really what happens, whether we realize it or not. I suppressed myself because early on, because I wasn't good in math, and I met a few people that were just great, you know. Just so happens some of the people I've known over my life, they're like, oh yeah, math is my subject. I'm like, oh God. I don't even want to talk to them because I'm like, I'm still going, okay, so carry the one. So I just go, yeah, history, I love history. You switch the subject right away. But I didn't realize all I had to do, and I almost lost my scholarship, by the way, when I was a freshman in college. I went to Montreat Anderson Junior, it was a junior college then, back in 1900. But I almost lost my scholarship because I got behind. And it wasn't an ego thing, I was just kind of embarrassed. And almost too late before I asked for help. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help, it's how you ask for help. There's nothing wrong with bringing people on your team, it's how you bring them on the team. And I finally, figured out, okay, who's the smartest person in this school? I found that out. I asked the professors, I was like, who's good in probability and stat? They were like, that person right there. So I was speaking last night about this. I went up to this wonderful, beautiful girl, but everybody said she was really mean. And I'm thinking, how mean can you be? And I'm the captain of the basketball team, and so I went up to her and I said, excuse me, and her name was Jennifer. I'll always remember that. And I said, Jennifer, hey, I'm Cylk, Cozart, and I'm on the basketball team. Yes? I'm like, okay, that's a good start. I said, I'm having a little problem in probability and stat. I'm just, type 2 error, hypothesis this. I really am confused. She goes, I understand. I was like, well, can you help me? I said, can I do anything for you? She goes, I don't need anything. I'm independently wealthy. My parents are this and that. I was like, okay. So we ended up being friends because that shell went away because I really listened to her. She was hurt, which had nothing to do with math, So we got into something that was more important than anything else, which is her well-being and how other people viewed her. I listened to her. I wasn't that stereotypical athlete that she had a vision of, that never went to class or, just, wanted to be, popular on campus. And when she saw that I wasn't like that, and I saw that she wasn't this mean girl that everybody talked about, it worked. And I passed well, and I got to play my freshman year in college and didn't embarrass my family. So, and I want to tell you one other thing before I wrap this up. In college, I went to King University. It was King College when I went. My basketball coach, his name was Al Nida. He's in the Hall of Fame. One game, my senior year, it was a tough game. We were supposed to play at a school called LMU, Lincoln Memorial. They were like the big school in that division at that point. And King had never beaten them. They'd just gotten whipped every year, So I was determined. I was like, we ain't gonna get beat this year. So we won. And I hit the last second shot, and pictures in the paper and the magazines all over the place. And the girls were like, ooh, all that stuff. Anyway, so Coach Nida calls me in his office. And I walk in his office the next day, and he's got my pictures all over the place. They're like all over the walls, everywhere. And I'm like, Coach, what's going on? And he said, well, do you believe this? I'm thinking, well, we did win, you know. And I'm thinking, is that a trick question? What is he doing, you know? But I knew he had a reason for doing it. I said, well, yeah, coach, I believe it. Yes, sir. And he says, that's not fair. And he starts tearing him down, balling him up, putting him in the trash. And I was like, coach has lost his mind. But I knew he hadn't. And I was just like, oh, what is going on? He said, that's not fair, Cozart. I said, what do you mean, coach? We won the game. We beat LMU. Bow! He goes, okay, that's a game. And he said, you're out there yelling, high-fiving the team in front of the crowd and all that stuff, along with everybody else. He said, you're the captain of the team. I said, yes, sir. He goes, that sends mixed signals. I said, what do you mean, coach? He goes, well, one thing, it looks like you're not used to winning. And the other thing is, when you lose, do you want the other team and everybody high-fiving in front of you and dancing around and all this stuff? I mean, I didn't dance around, I'm just saying. And I said, he said, well, what happens when you have a bad game and you don't even score? You can't even guard the referee. He said, what happens then? You're gonna high-five everybody, jump around, walk around like that? I said, no, sir. He said, wait till you get in the locker room with your teammates, your team, okay, that helped you get to that place. You celebrate all you want then, okay? That translated and transferred into the film business for me. I mean, there's a bunch of movies that made hundreds of millions of dollars, you know. Next thing I know, I'm traveling all over the world, and I'm thinking, everybody's like, oh, you're going to be the next this, and Denzel this, and all this stuff. I was like, oh, well, thank you very much. So I remembered Coach Nada's words, you know, what if you're doing a movie? I translated movie from basketball to movie. I said, what if you're doing a movie that it made $2.50? You know, what are you going to celebrate then? You're going to be around? No. So his words, you know, you don't have to be in that same genre to benefit from the results of that. And that's what I wanted to talk about, is challenge yourself on the empathetic points of views, no matter what position you're in, because it works. And I'm going to be speaking to our president before he's out about that. Not that he'll listen. I don't care. I just need to. He's going to give me a time, Frank, to speak for, and I will speak about empathy, you know, and not sarcasm, not egos. You need the ego because it needs to be in the back, not in the front. So what I would like to do is that if anyone has any kind of questions on anything, we can have like a little Q&A before the end, if that's okay. Is that okay with you guys? Is that okay with you? And I know I have a couple of minutes, but I would love to just answer any questions or talk to anybody that has anything to say. And talk after this if I see you guys out, or if you see me out. We'll take that time to do that. No? Yes. Hold on, they'll bring the mic to you. I like this part of it because people really say what they're like. What's it like working with Julia Roberts?
Well, I'm not going to get you there.
Okay, Christy Webb.
Yeah, I'm going to get us on with conversation here. He's wonderful to talk to, so yes, please ask questions. I want to ask you, last night you got a really good feel for what this organization is all about. And you were sharing some stories about that brand and about how you build those things. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that and the impact you got from meeting all of these folks?
Well, I'll try to sum that up because I went to bed thinking about how powerful this unit is. This union is so powerful. It reminded me of the educational system, how we all think differently. We all learn differently. Like if you are more visual and you have to write things down, or you have to hear things before you can do that, before you can do your best work. Well, the way you all have designed this particular scenario is you're setting yourself up for success. It's every year I see it's gotten bigger. I've done a little research. So if Chrissy, if that's kind of on the line of what you're talking about, that's very important. And it also goes back to listening, the listener and finding out what your best assets of your team and letting them go. And in the educational system, if they had a program that was intact before these kids got to, say, 8th grade, way before they get to 8th grade, you'll know which way that kid, his brain works or her brain works. So you can set them up for success as opposed to just putting everybody in one big globule. So that's my main focus, is to find out how our brains work before we get to the set. And then it works a lot better. You'll see. So, anyone? Oh.
I like what you just said about the ego in the back and not the front. Can you expound upon that?
Yes. If you lead, I found, and again, I don't tell anybody what to do. I say my experience has been, if you lead with an ego, you don't really have anything if it doesn't work, for one. Number two, you have to have an ego. If you're a boxer and you go in a ring, you don't have an ego. If you don't think you're going to beat that person, it's going to be pretty bad news, you know. So it's not for that. It is to accentuate your talents and your inside. It's to give you that self-determination when you need it. If you start out with it, you've used it up, and then you don't have anywhere to go. You're going to expect somebody else to give you that, oh, you're good, you can really do it. No. You know, most people, that's going to be a false sense of security. And I talk to a lot of parents about that, and they give their kids, you can beat these guys, you're better, you know, at that at them. Well, you know, that's a mom and a dad saying of their child, but then when that child goes out there and they really literally think they're better than someone else instead of their best that they individually can do, you don't have to say you're better than anybody else. Children are so wonderful. They don't, the color thing doesn't matter. They go, oh, you know, you're different, that's different, but it doesn't mean that's less than me or I'm better than you. Adults do that. We put that in our children, put that in kids. They're not born with prejudice. You know, dogs aren't born to bite people for no reason. They just come out, you know. Not really like that, but you know what I mean. So that's what I meant by the ego should not be up front, but you need it. When you're by yourself, you know, you doubt yourself. You're like, well, wait a minute, I did do this, and I am good at this, I am good at that. Embrace that. Embrace your greatness, as they say. You've got to. You can't, you know, everybody says, oh, be all humble. It's okay to be humble, but you also got to know you're wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful at certain things, and you got to acknowledge that. Otherwise, it'll fizzle out. You don't have to tell anybody that, but tell yourself that. And that has a little bit to do with the ego. I thought I saw somebody else's hand.
Yes. One over here. Hey there.
Hi,
Good morning.
Good morning.
So a follow-up on the ego question, but I'm going to flip it a little bit. For
Flip away.
many of us in this room, we are non-technical professionals working in a technical industry.
Yes.
So how do we, and there might be a few egos involved with those technical staff. Can I get an amen? Just saying. So how do we deal with those egos when we're trying to find our way? When we're trying to lead from a position of strength for the things that we know? How do we deal with those egos?
Great question. My suggestion is similar to where we have put our team together. You have a one-on-one, because most of us are a little different one-on-one than we are when we have an audience. You know, there's somebody with you that's just listening. Sometimes people get a little, you know, full of themselves, like, well, I have 5 degrees, and but if you're by yourself, you're like, well, you know, I just studied here, you know. So I would suggest meet with anyone that you're going to be working with. Find 5-10 minutes to meet with them and talk to them. Listen to see where their head is, because it's like attorneys will tell you all day long how smart they are. They'll tell you how many degrees, and they'll quote, you know, and section 14A, and you know, and you're like, I don't need that. I just need to know, is this legal or not? I don't need a lesson, you know. And technical people are very good at that, telling you how technical they are. They'll say, well, you know, my best friend Jim is very technical, and he's talented on all the other areas, but he'll spend 10 minutes going, well, the reason why I have to render it is because I'm like, Jim, just get to, just do. He's like, no, I want you to understand. So I think a lot of people are not coming from an egotistical point of view. They just want to get what they know out. You know, but you'll be able to determine that when you talk to them instead of waiting until you get around everybody on the team because they're going to have an audience then. So that's that would be one suggestion there, because you'll know, you'll know, and you know, I'm sure the non-technical people like myself, we have talents that we could expand on, you know, as well. But it's not getting anything done. It's just going back and forth. So again, what's the story? You find out what the story is, and that ego will go like this, because you'll know if they know the story or not. You'll know right away if they know the story or not. But we have like a couple more minutes. Anybody?
Any more questions?
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am. You got me in shape for this event.
So you've obviously had a long career, and I wanted to ask you a question about inspiration and where you find inspiration after, you know, doing something for so long. I know a lot of us live in that world where we've worked a long time in a very similar industry, and how do you find inspiration after doing something for so long?
Well, that's a great question. I'm a people person for one, so I can find inspiration from someone, a homeless person. I look for a spark. I look for that spark in everybody I meet, because everybody's got one. I don't care how depressed someone might look or feel. They have something. And I try to find that out. In fact, I learned a long time ago, if you're down and you think, oh, woe is me, go do something for somebody else. Find out that you can do something for somebody else. And what it does two things. It takes all that pressure you put on yourself off of you, and you're trying to help someone else. In the interim, you find out that what you were worried about is really not that bad. You know, so the inspiration comes from the other person. You think you're inspiring them, but they are inspiring you. At least that's been my experience. And I would suggest, you know, it doesn't have to be outward. You don't have to tell anybody what you're doing. You can find things to do for anyone. And as I was saying there, I think that's these two people that lived over 100 years ago. They showed us from an empathetic point of view, and they showed us from just a practical point of view. And the name of the movie is Inherit the Land. When I bought the rights to the book, it showed me, when I read that book, it was empathy. And they were the wealthiest people in that whole state. And they treated everybody the same. They didn't say, oh, we have a little black girl and her father we raised. That was like their little daughter. And they went everywhere. And they used their influence, their power, okay, their positioning in that area to make a difference. And that's what I wanted to do, is make sure that people use your power, use your influence, use your wealth. You're not going to lose wealth in your power or your influence. You're going to gain it when you do something that you know is right. These two ladies didn't make a point of it. They just lived it. And I think it's a microcosm of what we can be. I really do. Is that okay? And I think we have...
We got time for one more.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sue. My name is Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
So I see you have to traverse like a lot of different spaces. How do you find the courage to advocate for yourself in all these different roles in various phases of your life?
Oh, that's an easy question. My mother is the most wonderful human being I've ever met. She had me at 16, so we kind of grew up together. And I watched her go through things. I saw how boys treated her. I saw how young men treated her. And I saw how people should treat her. And that told me what I did not want to do from watching her and seeing her now and knowing her beautiful spirit. And wow, after going through all that, and she still has this, who am I? This is not a difficult thing for me, So that came from her, I have to say, because it does. I think I refer to her in my mind on different things. When I think things are tough, I go, wow, what she went through was 10 times more than what I'm thinking I'm going through now. So that gives me a sense of strength. And my belief in God. I have a lot of non-belief in human beings. You know, I always tell people I believe in God. Mankind is kind of difficult right now. So, yeah, that's where it made place, and there's so many avenues from her that I get. You know, so I kind of keep that inside. It's like Paul Newman, the great actor Paul Newman. I asked him, you know, one time. I said, "How are you that good? What do you do?" He goes, "I always have a secret." So what do you mean? He says, "I have a secret between me and the camera, which is the audience." And I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." So you'll see his movies, and you'll see little smirks, and you're like, what's he thinking about? What's going on there? And he always has something going on that has nothing to do with the scene, and you're like, it's so interesting to watch it. Tom Hanks is the same way. Julie Roberts is the same way. So I learn from everybody I meet. Like I said, homeless people to the President of the United States. It doesn't matter. We're all connected, which I love that. So, we good?
I think we're good.
Okay, and I'll see you guys walking around, I hope, before we get on the road back to Tennessee, right, Jim? Okay.
And I think we have some time for a trailer for your new film.
Oh yeah, it's a 90-second trailer for Inherit the Land. So, hope you enjoy it.
This story parallels exactly what we're going through right now, not just in America.
Especially in the South, you didn't see black and whites get together.
Now, this film follows the story of Maggie and Sally Ross. They lived in the late 1800s in Marvin, North Carolina. These ladies willed 800 acres to a black family during the Jim Crow era.
Maggie and Sally Ross were just instrumental in forming this congregation. They were, my understanding, the wealthiest ladies in Union County.
I do not want to lose you. Can we keep this between ourselves?
Marvin is a place unlike any other that I've ever seen in my life, as a reporter or a person or anything else.
I never have any racial problems.
No. You had to be okay with black people inheriting white land.
Nobody can believe it happened.
There are all these niggers in the road.
The faith of people who were in court to see the right and justice behind honoring the Ross sisters' request, to see it honored during that time, that could have gone another way.
The case was set for spring of 1921.
Did you take advantage of that old white woman?
I don't like Negroes.
Objection, Your Honor.
And the truth transcended color.